we have a special guest in studio right now. He happens to be running for Borough Warden. The election will be May 1st, which is very strange to me because the Borough of Jewett City has its own charter and its own election time, and it's unlike anywhere else that I know of. But May 1st is the borough elections, and running for Borough Warden is Tim Sharkey. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Mike.
How are you?
Pretty good.
Okay, don't sound so excited now. And Tim is running for Borough Warden.
Correct.
Against Alan Gear.
Correct.
This year. So now let's get right into the meat of things. Now I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Now, just so you know, I mean, we've been friends for a long time. We went to high school together and everything.
Yeah.
But there may be a couple of questions. Don't take them personal.
No problem.
Okay? But I'm not going to backdoor you either. So,
okay.
But because I'm sure
right.
There are a couple of things you probably already you'd heard of. So now, first thing, why don't you go ahead and give us your history, as far as town politics are concerned. Now, how long have you been a borough burgess, which you currently are?
10 years.
10 years. And you got elected back in 2007 for the first time? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
They're 2-year terms. So.
Okay. Who was on the board back then? Give me an idea.
When I first got on was Stanley Drobiak.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. Warden was Cindy Cater.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. It was myself, and I can't remember his name. He Pat.
Pat something or other.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what was it like? Your first year as a burgess. Kind of like Laura Laidley last year. It's
correct.
Like, what do I do?
Oh yeah. Yes. Well, see, I was fortunate because I was in the fire department for 21 years. So, believe it or not, even though it's a volunteer organization, you have politics.
Oh, sure.
And as I went up as high as deputy chief, and you go to borough meetings, you go to town meetings, you go to board of finance meetings. So I had a little bit of knowledge there. I didn't come in blind. Mm-hmm. And my first year, you go in with a lot of big ideas.
Okay, such as?
My first year was since having history with the fire service and the cost of renting fire hydrants. I'm sure people don't realize it, but the Borough of Jewett City pays rental on the fire hydrants. And it's roughly around $560
Did not know that.
Fire hydrant. And we have over 70 fire hydrants, so you can do the math.
Yeah.
And so me, with knowledge in firefighting, I said to myself, with today's equipment, today's technology, back 100 years ago when they first put in the fire hydrants, they had fire hydrants every 500 feet to 1,000 feet. So I sat there and said, well, with today's technology, back 100 years ago, they didn't have large diameter hose, meaning 4 and 5 inch diameter supply lines. Back in those days, they had the biggest line, I think, was a 3 inch, if not 2.5 inch. Mm-hmm. And so you needed, with friction loss, it's a whole math scheme in there. And they turned around and I said to myself, I can eliminate some of these fire hydrants, save tax dollars. So
this is your first term in, right?
My first term in. So
jumping
right in. So when I got elected, I came in and I brought it up to the board, and Cindy Cater, who was the warden, she says, that's a great idea, Timmy, run with it. Mm-hmm. Well, not realizing the fire marshal's office got involved, fire chiefs from both departments got involved, and Timmy, what are you doing? Do you realize once you take these out, we can...
The new guy's stirring the pot.
Yes,
yeah.
And I was like, listen, it's saving tax dollars. This is, taxpayers. We got to save money. Let's, And long story short, it's been 10 years, Mike, and still never got rid of those fire hydrants.
So what are you going to do? I mean, are you going to go ahead and, are you still trying? Or
No, because you know what the final answer came down to? Jewett City Water Company is privately owned, even though it has Jewett City's name. It always was privately owned. It's in the borough charter that if borough residents ever wanted to purchase it, we could purchase it at a, price.
Right. Oh, yeah. How much would that be?
Don't know. I'm sure it's got to be multi-millions, And so we turned around and we had a meeting with some water company issues and stuff, and I brought it up there, and the president of Jewett City Water Company looked right at me, says, fine, you can take out all the hydrants you want. I'll get my money elsewhere. So that's when I took a step back. Maybe sometimes you are better off to leave some things alone. And the other one was roads.
Yeah.
That was my other. Borough roads are in very poor condition, and so I started working on that. And 10 years, and Borough roads, thanks to Kevin Skolchik, he's really every year Borough gets a road done.
Good.
And that's all I ever wanted, me personally. I'm not looking for every year come and do 5 borough roads, If you're doing, I always said, if you're doing 8 or 10 roads out in the town, why can't you do 7 or 9 and save that one road in the borough?
Now, here's something. Now, we did a report yesterday, actually, here on the station, and it's up on our website, wolverine-radio.com, that Al Gear has pretty much put it out there that he is going to go ahead and he wants to buy flags.
Oh, the flags, yes.
For veterans' graves on the St. Mary cemeteries on Lily Pond, Lisbon, and Patchogue.
I started that.
That's where I was going with it. The funny thing is about 4 years ago, you're the one that actually proposed the motion.
It could have been longer than that. I'm not correct. I don't remember the time.
Yeah, Al actually told me this because I was talking to him, and he goes, do you know who actually made the motion? And I said, who? And he said, Tim Sharkey. And I said, I did not know that. Yeah. So we kind of ran with that. So really, you guys kind of work in tandem with that.
Oh, me and Al go back 30-something years with the fire department. In 1991, when I got into my motorcycle accident, Al was one of the first ones, when I finally got home, Al was one of the first ones to come see me. Me and Al, we get along very good.
Which is funny, when you look at an election, usually you supposedly have 2 candidates that are kind of a little bit at odds. Maybe, right, but you guys are not. You guys are not.
I almost backed out from running because when I found out Al was, I put my name in because they didn't have, both sides. So I said, you know what? People came to me and said, Timmy, you got to do it. It's, you're the young one there. You've been there. You got the experience. Go. And I said, all right. And I was going to get out of politics. I did it for 10 years, like I said. And, you come to a time where it's like, maybe it's time to step back. It's, it does take a toll because you want so many things to happen and you get frustrated when.
Well, you're dealing with different personalities, I'm sure, that come and go on the board. Different wardens
but for the
and
board,
stuff.
For the most part, we have a very, very good board. We work very well together. It's just, you get tired after a while, It's like, granted, sometimes we might have 3 meetings a month, but most times it's 1 meeting a month.
Yep.
And it's not for the pay,
That's for
it's
sure.
$200 a month,
right.
And it's just, you get tired. But then I said, you know what? If I don't do it, someday I'm going to turn around. Did you pay your bills, Mike?
Yeah. Yeah, also there's a little bucket loader or something like that just up on the sidewalk right behind us.
So, no, but I said, all right, fine, I'll do it. And I put my name in, and then I realized Al put his name in. And it's one thing in the fire department, again, we always said, we never did stuff. We never, if somebody was going to go, here, do something, you didn't run it to do that. You didn't, especially guys who got along. And I was going to back out. And then I thought, well, if Al don't have a problem with it, why should I?
And he doesn't. I know he doesn't. Yeah. I mean, Al and I are good friends, I mean, I've known him. I know you. So it's really kind of fun because I kind of tease it here, at the station and call it the bloodbath in the borough, between you and him. But it's nothing like that at all. Yeah. And it's going to be
Al's a good guy.
I think probably the biggest challenge that I could see is just getting people out there to vote.
On average, I think on average, the borough election
100,
around 150.
Yeah.
I know. I can tell you, the register of voters there, they only got 200 ballots. It's like 3,300 residents, and they only ordered like 200 ballots.
Oh my God, that's not even 1%. Mm-hmm. That's not even 1%. Yeah. And the national average is what, 25%? That actually go out and vote.
Sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's like 20. I think it's like 23%, which is the actual national average that people in whether towns, boroughs, whatever, get out and vote, and it's less than 1% here in the borough of Jewett City.
Jewett City's not the only one.
Oh, I'm sure not.
The borough
I'm
of Dennison has the problem. It's a couple. I forgot how many boroughs there was, but they all have issues.
What about why can't we make Glasgow a borough?
I'm sure they could. They'd
They're
have
like-
to separate from the town and form a charter like Jewett City. At one time, Jewett City was part of the town.
Yeah.
It was the industrial section, so they ended up there. I guess they didn't back then. They didn't like the way it was running, and they broke away.
Here's another question that I've heard that I hear from time to time. Is the borough at any time, or has there been actual thought of dissolving and just becoming
Yes.
part of the? Okay.
Yes.
What is stopping that? I hear it's a lot because of the electric company.
Correct. That's it.
Okay, and the ownership there.
Right.
What would have to
It's not
happen?
the ownership.
No, because the borough owns it. Correct.
All ratepayers that pay, like, the bill to the light company, you all own a piece of that.
Gotcha.
One of the problems is it was brought up for discussion just this past year, consolidation. And Ken Sullivan brought to our attention was Jewett City Electric has one of the lowest rates,
and we enjoy that.
and we enjoy that. That's not guaranteed with consolidation because, you could come in and say town of Grizzle bought it. They want to start expanding. Well, you need money. You need capital. So what are they? Sorry, guys, your $150 a month light bill is going to jump up to $250. And I don't know about you, but I don't want my rates
I don't
to
want
go
that.
up.
No. So is that pretty much the main reason?
That's yes, basically the way I look at it is it's
Gotcha.
like Ken Sullivan told us. The only ones that's going to get rich out of this is the lawyers.
Yeah, well, that's usually what happens anyway.
You're like me. You lived here your entire life. Say you've been paying a light bill for the last 30 years. So you figure, okay, I'm a senior guy here. And you could have John Doe who moved into the borough. He's paying rent, paying his own lights for the last 3 years. How much is he going to make
Right.
from the sales, compared to you? I don't know how they do it. But Stafford Springs and Stafford, they were a borough, they consolidated. But I don't know if they had their own light company and stuff like that.
I think the only other one is Yalesville out by Wallingford.
No, it's a couple of them out there. I forgot how many. It was like 8 or 9 left, if I remember. Don't quote me on the number, but it was like
Gotcha.
8 or 9 left.
I see. I thought there were only a couple that were left in that. But all right, we're going to take a quick break.
Yeah, go ahead.
And we're going to come back and talk a little bit more with Tim Sharkey, borough candidate for warden. The election is on May 1st, and biggest thing, get out there and vote. We'll talk more with Tim right after this on Wolverine Radio.
The largest music festival ever in Jewett City is coming. It's Hillfest 17, brought to you by the Jewett City Savings Bank and Wolverine Radio.
And welcome back here to Wolverine Radio. Mike Minarski with you on a Tuesday morning, and we are interviewing and speaking with Borough Warden candidate Tim Sharkey, who will be running, of course, like I just said, for warden. On May 1st, he's opposing the Democratic candidate, Alan Gear, for, like I said, for the third time, Borough Warden. You're a Borough Burgess as of right now. You've been on the board for 10 years. We discussed a couple of things like, like when you first got in there, you just, here comes the new kid.
Yeah.
Now, what are other things that you've accomplished or things that you've championed, say in the last few years as Burgess? What are things that you would talk about?
Sidewalks grants. I was part of that where Main Street up Route 12, worked on it. I had to go to Hartford a couple times, sit in with the meetings because it's on a point system. And you go up there and you spend a day up there, sit and listen to them talk and everything. You get points added on. So when you go in for your grants and stuff like that, part of that. I voted to support Resident Trooper. He did their program up there. Made a nomination to take $3,500 out of the pistol permit fund then to get things so they could buy supplies. Those type of stuff. Put a new roof. I was a fire commissioner for a while. Pushed to get the firehouse station. Needed a new roof. That was $40,000 right there.
Well, now here come the not so easy questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I don't have an answer, I'll...
That's cool. That's cool. And again, nothing personal, Tim. You and I go way back, so I don't want you to ever think that it's like that.
Yep.
Resident State Troopers is going to be a special meeting coming up in is it the borough that's having it? It's going to be actually at the youth center. It's going to with Griswold Pride.
Oh yes. About
Right.
Yes,
It has to do with the resident state troopers and what their roles would or would not be during certain borough events. Am I saying that right?
Sir, any
Or
events.
town events or anything like that. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, the rumor and the things that I've heard, and I don't know, because I've never talked to you about it.
Yeah.
It was like, you're not a big proponent of the resident state trooper program. Either you are or you're not. So I want to give you a chance to talk about it. And, how do you feel about the resident state trooper program and the expense? And if not, what's the alternative?
First off, the resident troopers I have no problems with. I enjoy the resident troopers. I work very hard if they need anything, because I am police commissioner. And this is my first year as police commissioner. And Adam and Russ, if they need anything, they call. As far as not supporting, if it's anything, I don't support the cost. I'm a firm believer, just like all the board members are. If our resident troopers, like perfect example, a couple of years ago we had the bicentennial parade.
Right.
I'm sure the taxpayers would really be happy that would be because it cost us close to $7,000
for troopers,
just for the troopers for that parade.
Dude, I know. I'm putting on the Hillfest on May 27th, and I'm totally on board with what that's my biggest expense.
The only thing if I don't support the resident troopers is the cost. Yeah, that's the only thing is cost. It's very, very expensive. That's our biggest tax.
Yeah,
is the resident troopers, and I want to shop around, Mike. Look at Preston. They're looking at Norwich coming in. If it's
I've heard Plainfield, maybe a constabulary.
Yeah, regionalization. I would love to see regionalization come. Me and Kevin's talked about that, and I don't see why Jewett City shouldn't be part of that. And that's where I stand. It's cost. I have nothing against any police force. I love public safety. I was a volunteer for 21 years, and I worked very closely with police. My dream is I would love to see Jewett City have a police force again, whether it's constables, however it works out, whether it's regionalization. I would love to see like they do down south and out in the Midwest, Mike, where you have county sheriffs.
Yeah. It's
just because cost, and that's what every town, not just Jewett City, every town.
Now, I heard that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I very well may be, is the cost factor was looked into as far as like sharing with Plainfield, and the expense for having road guys and road girls coming up from Plainfield is actually probably about 30% cheaper than having two resident state troopers here in the town. Is there some truth to that? Or?
Yes, this past year, we hired an outside consultant. Myself and John Conley was the one who originally brought him in. And for some unknown reason, John Conley stepped aside from it, and the board kept with Agnolo Investigations. Sid Luther came in, and he went around to all the towns. We wanted to do regionalization, multi-town police force, where everybody puts so much money in the pot, and everybody shares the police. It's got to be cheaper. And he came in to our meeting, it's on public record, where he asked Plainfield, and they were at the time were willing to come in to give 2 patrolmen for around $70,000.
Which is a lot less money than what the residents.
Almost $400,000, $350,000.
Right. And plus, the state's not even kicking in as much as they used to.
No, this year we got to go to our budget workshop, and we're looking at funding 100% this year.
So now that's
last year was 85%.
And before that, wasn't it 70%?
When the resident troopers program first started, I believe it was like you only had to pay 20% back in those days, and the state covered the 80. And now here we are, since 1994, when Jewett City first got the resident troopers. Last year was 85% we had to pay.
Yeah.
And Governor Malloy, he wants us to pay 100%. Not just Jewett City, all towns that have resident troopers.
Yeah, let's see. Out of 169 towns in the state in the state of Connecticut, it was like 75 to 80% use the resident state trooper program.
Yeah, somewhere around.
As the state police really is their local police department. Yeah. Well,
look at Danielson. I can remember when Danielson first got rid of their police department. The big thing was, we have Troop D right here in our town. We're going to have police all the time. They started off, and they're looking at forming their own police department again.
Yeah,
it's just so expensive.
I would think that the cost would be between $300,000 and $400,000 a year to maintain a resident, or I should say, a police department within Jewett City.
I don't know the numbers. Don't know that. I would be afraid to even answer.
It would be costly, and I can just imagine bringing that up to a town meeting or a borough meeting.
Well, I can tell you this. One day, myself and John Conley And Sid Luther sat down with, his name is Nelson Abaze, and he was a retired trooper who is in Prospect, Connecticut. They had 4 resident troopers, and he got rid of them to where he has 14 police officers now, and it's right around the same price as the resident troopers he was paying, if not a little cheaper. And how they're doing it is constables.
I'm glad you said that.
You hire retired police officers. You don't have to pay them no benefits. They come in, they pick their own hours, and there's your 24/7 police coverage.
Right.
People don't realize that. You have resident troopers. That does not mean you have 24/7 coverage with these resident troopers. They work with 5 days on, 3 days off. So those 3 days off, you're being covered by a road trooper.
Right.
You know, and people have the misconception where they go out of their house and, oh, there's my resident trooper pulled somebody over. You don't know. It could be a guy who just came off for $3.95 on his way to the Pizza Palace for lunch.
Yeah.
You know, and we get a lot of complaints, you know, down at the resident trooper's office. Oh, it is, well, how come our troopers aren't out on the road? It's 2 cruisers parked down there. Why aren't they out patrolling? You don't, it's not, resident troopers aren't working. Those are road guys. They come in here because this is the main hub in Eastern District. So they have a lot of troopers come in. They go into the office down there. They do their paperwork and
have lunch, BS. I've been down there.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
But you know what? It's like any position. Everybody has a right to a break, regardless of who you are.
Right. But
so
as far as Grizzle Pride, Mike, it's the cost.
Yep.
It's the cost. I'm a firm believer. If they're having a function, say, up at the town garage, Easter egg hunt, they want Jewett City's resident trooper to go up there patrol. If it's a Sunday, say, the borough residents is paying over $200 an hour for that trooper to be up there, and the town residents, the town taxpayers,
aren't paying anything.
And a lot of people don't realize. There was people on, right now it sits on boards for the town. They don't realize borough residents pay taxes to the borough.
Right. Well, unless you live in the borough, you know it.
Unless you live in the borough, you know it.
I do want to ask you, I do want to invite you back another time before the actual election. I would like to